As I stood on the rooftop, the velvet sky shimmered with the city skyline and the sound of laughter and clinking drinks below. I'm about to ask Isla to be my wife, and my heart is racing. The pressure of the moment, rather than the tightness of the suit, was making me feel self-conscious as I watched my friends, relatives, and coworkers. I had spent months planning this promise, and the ring in my pocket felt heavy, because I barely knew her. Yet she was important to me. I've seen her grin 100 times tonight, and the cheers mark the beginning of something very special. Margot's mother stood up with her arms raised. She took a long breath, preparing to speak. Her icy, intense stare was fixed on me, as if she were ready to toast, and I had a sinking feeling that something was amiss. Despite the background noise, "Griffin," she finally spoke up. "You need to relinquish your $4 million bequest." The words hit us like a punch, and we couldn't help but chuckle. I blinked, waiting for the punchline, but her expression was dead serious. I couldn't believe it. How could she even know about the money? I'd never told anybody but Isla, and even then, only in whispers. I forced a giggle, thinking I could diffuse it. "Margot, come on. Let's not do this here." But she stepped closer, her heels pounding on the wood. "You think you can just waltz into our family? Pay up, or you're out." My cheeks scorched. Everyone watched, some whispering, others looking away. Isla's face was pale, her hands clutching her handkerchief like it was a lifeline. I opened my mouth to say something calm. But before I could, her hand flew up and smacked across my cheek. The slap was so harsh, my head twisted sideways and I stumbled into the wall behind me. Pain flared, hot and piercing. The room went silent, like someone had squeezed the breath out. I tasted blood where my lip had split. Slowly I straightened, my eyes locked on Margot. She stood there smug, like she'd won something. My hand moved, not to punch back, I'd never do that, but to steady myself. I wiped my mouth, feeling the sting, and stared at her. "You're going to get a surprise you'll never forget," I said. My voice was low but steady. Every word felt like a promise, not just to her, but to myself. I wasn't the youngster she thought she could bully. I wasn't some nobody she could scare off. The crowd split, and I heard footsteps, deliberate and quiet. My father walked in, his navy suit pristine, his face unreadable except for a slight threatening smile. Margot's eyes widened. Her glass slipped from her hand and shattered on the floor. She knew him, not just as my father, but as someone she'd crossed years ago. I didn't move, didn't look away. The air felt electric, like a storm about to shatter. My father halted, beside me. His presence filled the space. He didn't speak. He didn't need to. Margot's face drained of color, and for the first time that night, she seemed small. I stood taller, the sting in my cheek fading under the weight of what was coming. This wasn't about money anymore, or a ring. It was about who I was, and who she'd just made an enemy of. Could feel Isla's eyes on me, but I didn't look at her. Not yet. I needed to stay focused, to see this through. My father's hand rested lightly on my shoulder, a signal we'd planned weeks ago. I hadn't anticipated using it tonight. But here we were. The room was still. Everyone watching. Waiting. Margot opened her mouth. Maybe to talk. Maybe to take it all back. But no voice came out. I felt a strange calm settle over me. This was the moment. Everything was about to change, not just for me, but for all of them. They thought they could force me around, but they merely lit a fire I didn't know was there. I wasn't going to bend, not now, not ever. The night I intended was gone, but something else was taking its place, something greater. I could feel it growing like a wave, and I was ready to ride. My father leaned forward slightly, his eyes on Margot, and I knew whatever came next would hurt her more than that slap ever did. I stood there, the rooftop pulsing with tension, my face still hurting. The shattered glass from Margot's spilled champagne gleamed on the floor, catching the fairy lights. Everyone's eyes were on my father, Robert, who just strode in like he owned the house. He did. That's what made every room feel like it belonged to him. His blue suit was sharp, his silver hair catching the light, but it was his smile that held the weight. That little, knowing smile. Like he'd already won a game, nobody else knew they were playing. I glanced at Margot. Her face was pallid, lips parted like she wanted to speak, but couldn't find the words. She recognized him. And not in a good way. I'd never told her family much about my dad. Never felt the need to. They imagined I was some broke kid who'd lucked into their world. Suddenly they were about to find out how wrong they were. "You really shouldn't hit people who pay your mortgage, Margot," my father said, his voice smooth but laced with steel. The words landed like a bomb. Gasps rippled through the gathering. Isla's head snapped up, her eyes wide, searching. My face for answers. I didn't look at her. Not yet. I was too focused on Margot, watching her try to piece it all together. Her husband, Douglas, stood up. His chair scraped noisily. "What the hell are you talking about, Robert?" he yelled. Then there was a tremble in his voice. My father didn't flinch. He stepped forward, hands in his pockets, nonchalant, as if he were commenting on the weather. "Well, you didn't realize your family's been surviving off my son's investments for years. That mansion you love so much, the one you're so proud of, Griffin's been covering the loans you couldn't pay." My stomach twisted. Not because it wasn't true, but because saying it out loud made it real. I hadn't wanted to throw it in their faces. I'd supported them quietly, through back channels, because I loved Isla, because I thought it was the right thing to do. Now it felt like a weapon, and my father was swinging it. Margot's lips opened, then closed. She looked at me, then at him, like she was solving a puzzle with missing pieces. I could see her mind racing, remembering every time she'd called me a charity case, every snarky comment about my scholarship child roots. I let it slide, kept my head down. I didn't need their approval, but now they were learning who I truly was. She picked up. Her tone was stern. No nonsense. "Margot's hired a private investigator, claims she's got dirt on you. Something substantial enough to argue for an annulment if you and Isla get married. She's calling it fraud." I laughed, though that wasn't hilarious. "Fraud? What, because I didn't hand over my bank balances at dinner?" "Yep," I didn't laugh back. "Griffin, I'm serious. They're desperate. This PI's been researching your accounts, your investments, even your college years. If there's anything you haven't told me, now's the time." I leaned against the counter, the